First of all, thank you guys for being here. You know, it's reminiscent, as I mentioned to you earlier. I used to be in the coffee business. I owned a small chain of coffee houses called News and Views. We were in Algiers, I was in downtown New Orleans, 2 locations in Algiers, one in the Point, one in Montreal. It was fun. And I started quite by accident. I found an old piece of property in Algiers Point, fell in love with it, and said, hey, this is a coffee shop waiting to happen. So I reached out to different franchise operations and they said, this is what's going to cost, this you have to do. I said, what do I get for it? That's okay, I'll do my own. So I created my own, had a trademark, the whole 9 yards. My intention was ultimately to build several stores, sell them, franchise them, and become a roaster, and then supply to various coffee shops. Kind of burned down and I got a knock on the door, ended up selling. The rest is history, but it's a great business, and I'm happy to be here with you guys today. Certainly grateful for Baldwin Books providing this venue for us to be able to come and talk about, coffee and tariffs, what's happening in our community with small operators and the challenges that you already face when price margins are thin. Tariffs and cost of goods go up, make it much more difficult for you. So happy to be here. Certainly want to thank DJ Johnson and Brittany for opening the doors for us to be here today. Cherry Roasters, Cherry Coffee Roasters, William Hall, operating manager, and Crescent City Coffee, Stephanie Chavez with PJs, and of course Moss. Thank you for being here with us as well. So let's just kind of talk about, I'll kind of give you guys a chance to just introduce yourselves and talk about how you got the business. But then let's pivot to the policies that I think are certainly going to hurt American businesses and certainly going to hurt small businesses. Tariffs in and of itself is not a bad word. Tariffs, when used properly, can be a good tool in our toolbox. But when you use them at a time when our economy is already challenged and you don't take into account the impacts that it would have on small businesses, it tends to hurt. So tell us a little bit about you and your operation.
Okay, again, my name is Stephanie Chambliss. I am owner-operator of Crescent City Coffee, doing business as PJ's Coffee on Reed Boulevard in New Orleans East. We opened up back in 2018, which was right before the pandemic in 2019. So we're, not afraid of challenges, but, customers are price sensitive. So with the tariffs and all of the changes that are being made with the economy that was already having a lot of changes, we have to figure out ways to be more creative, because you're right, the profit margins are thinning, but we also have to consider the customers and the effect on them, because if we don't properly alter the way we do business, I'll find myself with customers drinking coffee at home. So I have to figure out ways to keep them coming in the shop.
And sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, in a small operation, on any given day, with the profit margins that there are, sometimes it's that muffin that made the profit for the day. Everything else is just breaking even. And so the margins are challenging. So we thank you guys, because we love our coffee house. We love the atmosphere. But it's got to also make sense to you as a business owner. Otherwise, it's hard for you to keep your doors open for us to enjoy a good hot cup of tea or a coffee or a place to read a book, or to have a scone or a muffin or a bagel if it's not profitable.
Right. Yeah. I'm Williams. I'm with Cherry Coffee Roasters. We are a specialty coffee roaster. Started in the early 2010s in Steins Deli, just like a counter. And we've grown to 2 brick and mortar places with a roastery as well. We like to buy from third world countries with women-owned farms, and that are concentrate, or we definitely focus on the quality of coffee. Tariffs have been a little bit difficult for us, with the C market and different supply and demand. But yeah, definitely thanks for coming in, having this conversation with us.
Yeah. Moss?
I'm Moss. I've been working in coffee for almost 8 years now, and I've been with Cherry for 2 years. I'm the lead roaster, and I also run the coffee education program there. And with just like roasting the coffee, I also have a hand in like purchasing unroasted coffee. So I've really seen firsthand how much our prices have gone up. And even before the tariffs were implemented, we were kind of seeing just like market instability caused by not knowing when the tariffs were going to be there and like what
On again, off again.
Exactly, and so just prices even before tariffs have gone up by quite a bit, right? Like 30 or 40% depending on where the coffee is coming from. So our profit margins on just like coffee itself have gone down by like almost like 25 or 30%, which has been very difficult for us. On top of just like having to go through the summer in New Orleans, as we're kind of talking beforehand. So like business is already slow, and then the business that we have, we're just not making the same amount of money on like a cup of coffee, the bag of coffee that we're selling.
So cost of goods go up, customers don't come as much because you don't have as much disposable income, and as much as we all love our coffee and our tea, sometimes people take to not going to a really nice coffee house where you could sit. They may opt to use instant coffee and drink it home just to get their fix. But coffee houses are so much more than just a cup of coffee, right?
Right.
They're a community meeting place. They're a place where people come to meet their friends, to meet old friends, new friends, to read a book, to do homework, or just to browse the internet. And of course, you don't charge for a person sitting there, so if a person comes to read their computer, you're providing a service, but you aren't getting paid.
Right.
And the tariffs, I think people don't always understand the significance of what this means to business people, particularly small business people. So Stephanie, when you're in a great location in eastern New Orleans where we have been fighting to have more restaurants and more businesses, you're one of the ones that have really hung in there. But you can't hang in there forever, can you?
No, we can't. So, again, we had to figure out ways to pivot and to not necessarily raise prices just because as the business owner, I'm experiencing an increase of prices. And it's my understanding that this is going to be the first batch that comes in that we're affected with tariffs. So my brand now is trying to figure out, what, if anything, is going to be passed down to the small business owner, the franchisees, such as myself. But some of the things that we did to pivot, because customers are price sensitive. I mean, if they get a small cup of coffee, they come in the shop with $2.47 in their hand. I can't imagine telling them right now, especially with the economy changing, so many people are being
And it
let
also
go.
impacts your tipped employees.
Oh, absolutely.
Who don't get a tip anymore because
Absolutely.
people are just enough to pay for their coffee, and that also impacts the economy.
Mhm. But again, the coffee shop is so much more than a place where people just come have coffee. There are a lot of meetings that occur, like our meeting here today. So we figured out ways to have events such as, right now we're doing what's called a pastry on the patio. Since it's election season in New Orleans, we invite all candidates running for office to come and purchase pastries and coffee for our customers. And they can do that for 2 hours, and that's how we allow them to campaign on the premises. So we have taken the approach where we don't necessarily want to pass the cost to the customers if we can't, because we're afraid that, of course, we would lose the customers. It'd be much cheaper to buy a bag of coffee at home. We still want to have them come in, so we've been figuring out ways to draw larger groups in. So that's kind of what we do.
I had an in-depth conversation with DJ, the owner of Baldwin, who was gracious enough to allow us to be here in their bookstore coffee shop, and he shared with me his great frustration as well. As all of you who are in the coffee business, you're going to feel the pinch of the hot days of summer, coupled with a challenged economy, and now tariffs. I mean, it's kind of like the atomic bomb dropping on an industry that is so important. I mean, Louisiana and New Orleans is known for its coffee, from the chained operations that are well known all over the country to the mom and pops that we are so uniquely known for, the unique flavors of the eclectic nature of our neighborhoods, and the importance of, as you mentioned, meeting places, sometimes just having a quiet place to think. The impacts of tariffs, oftentimes people look at the big picture and they don't see what it means back home. And that's why we wanted to have this conversation, to bring attention to the concerns that DJ shared with me, the concerns that we're talking about. If you had an opportunity, and you do now, as a member of Congress, I will take back what I'm learning from you. But for those who will watch this, what would you say to policymakers about the need to protect our small businesses and to shield you from the unnecessary, undue taxation, if you will, that will cripple your ability to continue doing business? What would you say to them?
I would like to ask for more thorough research and just to be transparent with us and with the people, because we hear, oh, it's going to make the economy so much richer. We hear that over and over again, but someone has to pay the cost, right? And we keep hearing it in in other countries, but that cost is going to trickle down from us, the small business owners, down to the customers. So I would ask, to be more transparent and to have more conversations like we're having today with people who are actually living this fight every day.
Yeah. Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, when asked about tariffs, he said, well, maybe in the long run it'll help, but it won't matter because we'll all be dead. And he's known for the one-liners.
Right.
But when you think about that, if you think there's something to be gained in the long run, what does that do for all the small businesses who, in many cases, just kind of hanging on? We have to have provisions to adjust and to make sure that when we look at our economic forecasting, that we're looking at small businesses and doing everything in our power to make sure that they're sustainable.
Yeah, I think there just needs to be more education about, or like everyone needs to know and understand how tariffs affect everyone. Like specifically with the coffee, like the tariffs on Brazil. So like that means that everyone that's going to buy green beans from Brazil, everyone goes away from Brazil and they start buying more coffee from Ethiopia and Mexico, and that creates the demand for those countries to go up. So it's, even though it's Brazil that's having the tariffs, it's actually like the cost is going up everywhere in what's called the C market that it affects everywhere. So not just Brazil, but like now, because more, sources of coffee are going to Mexico, now Mexican coffee is very expensive.
Yeah.
So that's really how.
When the marketplace gets a squeeze,
Right.
everything is impacted.
Right. So now just buying from Brazil, way more expensive. So everyone's avoiding that. And then the demand for all the other countries goes up. And so prices increase everywhere.
So Ross, you see it at the green bean level. Do you do the buying as well as the actual roasting and flavoring?
Yeah, I work with my boss Lauren to purchase green coffee from a few different importers. So we've seen drastic increases in the price of coffee. So like green coffee at a specialty grade is marked up from the commodity price of coffee because it's just that higher caliber of coffee. We've seen prices go up several dollars a pound across the board. So things that like, we've had to raise the price of our house blend by several dollars, and we've lost customers because of it, both in our cafes and as part of our wholesale business, just because our wholesale partners have not been able to justify raising their prices because we've had to raise ours just to like keep the lights on. And something that I think is very important to note about tariffs is like, if the point of them is to get people to buy things made in America, you can't really grow enough coffee in America. You can just grow it in Hawaii, and like there are experiments with growing it in Southern California, but it's just like prohibitively expensive, and like I haven't even been able to like try it because it's like $70 a pound or something.
Oh my God.
Maybe not quite that much, but at a level that nobody's able to afford. So it doesn't make sense for this policy to be in place with things that like you literally cannot make them in America, because we would try to like bring our prices down.
Sure. Well, that's demonstrative of the fact that tariffs can't be a one-size-fits-all. While it may be applicable in some places under some schemes or in some ways, it can't be a one-size-fits-all that is applicable, because as you mentioned, you don't have the luxury of being able to just go and grow a premium bean that you can then roast and sell. So you depend on being able to get it from other places. And I'd imagine also, not only does the cost of bean go up, but what about your syrups and the products and the things that you use to produce that, from the green bean to the roasting stage to get it to the marketplace?
Oh, absolutely. The cost of our bags that we put the coffee in has gone up. The cost of cups has gone up. Pretty much any paper good. So like, it's not just the cup of coffee, it's everything in the business has gone up by a few cents to a few dollars.
We've already mentioned a few cents to a few dollars makes a big difference at the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, end of the year. When I was in the coffee business, the only person that didn't get paid on payday some days was me.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's how it
because
works.
all you gotta pay your vendors, you gotta pay your utilities, you gotta pay your maintenance and rents, and you gotta pay your employees.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're sitting there saying, you know, mama, there's nothing coming home this week.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we are taking your message as the people on the ground, the people that make the difference. Because oftentimes in Washington, things are on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
This meeting is to put a face to the spreadsheet. So this is not just some widget. These are real people that employ real people that provide real services. So this is Stephanie and Will and Moss. These are real people that operate a business in our community that are being negatively impacted. So this discussion is very timely. When I first reached out to DJ here at Baldwin, he said, man, your timing couldn't be better. I was just getting ready to write a letter. I said, well, still write the letter, but let's talk about it and let us help you get the word out, get the message out that our economy has to take into account the small business people.
Is there talks about excluding green bean coffee from these tariffs?
Everything, in my estimation, is on the table.
Yeah.
We have been successful in pushing back against a lot of the things from the Trump administration that were part of this big bill.
Yeah.
I call it a big ugly bill. They call it a big beautiful bill. But it's a big law now.
Yeah.
And many of the parts of those things we're going to be looking at repealing, quite frankly. Looking at taking back the authority of tariffs where they rightly belong with the Congress, and to repeal and to look at how these things can be adjusted, because we know that the short-term pain that it's causing is turning into long-term harm. So we're open to any idea. Share with me, develop your thought there on just excluding or having exemptions for certain products that would help, even if we're in a small cap area, right?
Right.
So maybe not for the Fortune 500 companies, but at a level where small operators will get some relief, because historically you don't have the level of bandwidth to have the ability to go months without a sale.
Right. No, I mean, I guess it's just like, you know, tariffs are supposed to be like, okay, or encourage, or, you know, what I think, like, grow American businesses. Like, okay, if we're gonna tariff Brazil to bring Brazilian exports here, like, or like, you know, to encourage car manufacturers to build cars in America. And like Moss said, we cannot grow coffee here. So like, if it can't be produced in America, then, you know, maybe there's some kind of, that's where you kind of fight, like, this can't, like, we cannot grow coffee in America sustainably, right? So that's really my
Yeah, and we're going to continue to look at and make this argument as well as others that while tariffs are an economic tool that have value,
Yeah,
when they're not well thought out,
correct.
then they hurt. And we see across a lot of areas and industries that are hurting, rather it's steel plants or coffee shops. Tariffs are really impacting the bottom line. And the notion somehow that, well, the tariff is going to be paid by the other country. No, the tariff is going to be paid at the port. And when you pick up your green bean, it's going to cost you X. And now you have to charge XX to be able to make a profit. Otherwise, you're working in deficit. You don't open your doors every day working in deficit.
Right.
You want to continue, and I applaud you guys for having the passion to want to continue to provide quality service, and in your case, Stephanie, to not even increase your prices and bite the bullet, but you can only do that for so long.
You're correct. When we opened right before COVID. And we found ourselves during that time not only surviving but thriving. But what we're experiencing now is different. This is already, out of 6 years, this is the slowest summer we've ever had. And I read with regards to tariffs, we will all feel the effects 6 to 8 months from when they were implemented. So that leads into the
worst part
holiday
hasn't come
season.
yet.
Right. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. But we've already had a rough summer. So now we're talking about the holiday season. So it sounds like that season could be rough for not only coffee businesses, but for all businesses. And unfortunately, a lot of people won't be able to sustain. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because these are some things that we all have to start thinking about now as they come through the pipeline in just a few months.
And it's important that policymakers and the White House hear this, because they've got to understand if your intention is to stimulate the economy. You don't stimulate the economy by shutting businesses down. You don't stimulate the economy by putting the product so far out of reach that the average person can't get to it, because that means you lay people off. That means you have to increase the price of your goods. That means ultimately you start to see diminishing returns, and that's counterintuitive to what these things are supposed to be. So, in an abundance of caution, let's sometimes assume that maybe they didn't get it. And so our approach is to not kick rocks, but to educate, and to listen to people like you who live this every single day, so they will hear it. They'll hear it firsthand. These tariffs are hurting people. They're hurting businesses. And we have to reverse course before it's too late.
Yep.
And that's a fact. And we can do that. So I want to thank you guys for being here with us today. Let's give another plug to each of your shops. I'm here at Baldwin Bookstore right here in the heart of New Orleans. Fantastic coffee shop, bookstore, great place to come, relax, read, have a cup of coffee, meet old friends. And we're joined by these other purveyors who are wonderful operators as well. Give us a shameless pitch for your business.
Again, Stephanie Chambers here from Crescent City Coffee, doing business as PJ's, affectionately on Reed Boulevard, located in Eastern New Orleans.
Moss, you want to give us a
Moss?
plug?
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Moss. I'm the roaster and coffee educator for Cherry Coffee Roasters. We have 2 locations. We have an uptown location on the corner of Laurel and Upper Line, and we have a location that just opened last year in Gretna. And we serve high quality specialty coffee, and we try to focus on purchasing coffee from female coffee producers.
Wonderful.
Yep. And I'm William Hall with Cherry Coffee Roasters. Come see us.
Well, fantastic. Thank you all for being here. Let's kind of continue this. I will take back what we've learned. We'll make sure this gets out. And if you think of other things that we can do to assist, we recognize, and I'm a huge fan of coffee shops, a huge fan of small businesses, and we want to make sure that we level the playing field and make it as profitable for you as possible, so we can continue to enjoy being with you. So God bless you. Thank you for being with us, and we'll keep fighting for you.